The story starts with the protagonist, Lin Mu, sitting in his class and struggling to solve a question. A group of alluring girls stepped inside the classroom. Everyone's eyes were on them. The enticing woman in the front with black hair was Du Xiaoyu. Due to her looks, she was considered the queen of campus, even though she was just a college freshman. Everyone wondered what a freshman was doing in the second-year class. The woman with pink hair looked at Lin Mu and asked if he was the one she was engaged to. Du Xiaoyu openly showed her disgust and stated that she would rather stay single than marry a trash like him. The pink-haired woman approached Lin Mu and slammed her hands on his desk, asking him to move out. Lin Mu refused to move and told her to sit somewhere on the empty seats. But the woman was not taking a no from him. She began intimidating him with the fact that he was stupid and dared to sit in the front of the class. One of his classmates tapped his shoulder and pressurized him to move, especially when a beautiful woman is asking him to. Cornered by everyone, Lin Mu stuffed the book in his bag and stepped outside the desk. On his way, he passed by Du Xiao, who with her stabbing eyes quoted that he was a coward. The pink-haired woman wondered if Lin had entered the university through his father's connections, but Du Xiao couldn't care any less about him as long as their engagement was broken. It was night and Lin was waiting by the bus stop. His hands clenched when he thought about the incident from earlier that day. The engagement was a decision taken by the elders, and he was as helpless as Du Xiao in that matter, but she kept on faulting him for it since the day it was announced. Forcing himself to forget the painful memories, he stepped inside the taxi to go check on his grandfather's health. Lin reached his family mansion and called out for his grandfather. He was about to ring the doorbell, but his hand stopped midway when he heard his eldest uncle, second uncle, and his aunt arguing with each other. Hesitantly, Lin stepped inside. His aunt informed him that his grandfather was at the hospital for a general checkup and would be home back soon. Lin walked past the others, silently heading toward his room. Sipping his tea, the eldest uncle passed his comment on how kids these days forget their manners of greeting their elders. The second uncle followed him and stated that he didn't even care about Lin, as he didn't have any longer to live anyway. Lin's grandfather was at home by dinner time. Lin assured him that he would take good care of him for the next few days, as his school was closed. His grandfather was happy to hear it, but couldn't display the emotion on his face. He was in that state of grief ever since Lin's parents passed away. His aunt called them for dinner and everyone got seated by the dining table with hot food on the table. As they served, the eldest and the second uncle talked about who would get the authority of the auction department. Lin lost his hunger immediately after listening to their conversation. Without eating anything, he left the table and walked onto the terrace. Under the moonlight, he grieved for his parents and felt angry about how the family was splitting apart. A voice called him from behind. It was his second uncle, and he came to check up on Lin as he hadn't had his dinner. He talked to him about his brother, Lin's father, who took over the skills of Lin's grandpa and succeeded him. And how the family business lost money under his administration. He ended his monologue by stating that men shouldn't reach for things they can't reach, or else things turn into a big mess. This last part caught Lin's attention. He asked his uncle what he meant by that, but in an instant, he got pushed down the terrace, and he fell on the ground with blood pooling around him. With merciless eyes, his uncle watched him die and called it an act of uniting him with his parents. A nurse barged into the doctor's office and informed her of an urgent case she had to take up. Lin's unconscious body was resting on the surgery bed and the doctor started the procedure. She placed needles around his head, stabilizing his vitals so that the surgery could be started ASAP. Lin's pulse was going down, so they had to use defibrillators to revive him. But it was an attempt in vain, as Lin lost all his vitals, and the operation was declared a failure. The doctor covered the body with a blanket and left the room to relay the message to Lin's guardian. A dark cloud whooshed above Lin and blew away his blanket. A glittering thing entered his body, and black smoke materialized into a ring on his index finger. The next morning, the loud screams from the nurses caught the doctor's attention, and she went running toward them. The two frightened nurses were pointing toward Lin's body. The doctor noticed something very strange. The body was more well-built than earlier and warm. She placed her finger by his nose to check his breath. Lin opened his eyes and rose up. He asked the doctor who she was, and where he was. And to top it off, he even forgot who he was. Lin was kept in special care for a while, where he read a book that gave him enough information about the present world, which had very less spiritual chi compared to the world he was from. After meeting the doctor for one last time, he bid her goodbye and sat in a taxi, which took him to his university. The driver asked for the fare money, but Lin didn't have any. He was at the end of his thoughts when a girl in a bob cut and purple hair greeted him from the car's window. Lin asked her for money, and she gave it to him without any second thought, although she had a doubt that he had plastic surgery. Later, he explained to her how he lost his memory after he fell off the balcony and also that he didn't recognize her. The girl told him that losing his memories was a good thing instead of being a bad one. That's when Du Xiao along with 2 other girls approached them. The first thing Du Xiao asked Lu was if he had plastic surgery, to which he denied, but she didn't hear him. Du Xiao thought that he had it done, hoping that she would marry him. This time she quoted that trash will always be trash, and she still doesn't want to marry him. In an instant, he realized that the previous owner of the body was engaged to Du Xiao. Lin agreed to break off their engagement. This took them by surprise. He even stated that he wouldn't want to marry someone like her. Turning back and walking towards their class, Tang Bei told Lin how cool he looked for a change. Just as they entered their class, Tang Bei stopped a dart that was about to hit her eye. She scolded the guy who threw it and flung the dart for a bull's eye on the dartboard. Lin was impressed by her skills. Later, Tang Bei introduced Lin to his class and told everyone that he had lost his memory and that their coordination was expected to help him. The classroom's door opened, and a woman entered inside. It was their assistant instructor, and she told Lin to follow her to the office. In the office, the instructor asked him about his health and told him to feel free to visit her for help if he needed anything. Tang Bei entered the office and took Lin to have lunch with her. The instructor noticed that both his physique and personality had changed but stayed silent. Lin praised Tang Bei for her dart-throwing skills and asked her if she could teach him. She agreed and examined his body, wondering if falling off a balcony could enhance one's body. Tang Bei summed up everything and told Lin that this might be the god giving him a second chance to live and hoped that at least now he changed from being an introverted wuss. And when Lin asked her how, she asked him back if he knew about the dragon defenders.